Chapter 1. The Mystery of Megalithic Constructions. The first time I touched one of those giant stones, I felt it wasn't just matter, it was memory. There, among those walls that defy all logic, I knew the books hadn't told us everything. I had learned that the Incas didn't know the wheel, iron, or writing as we understand it. But before those precisely interlocked stones, I understood that another kind of knowledge lived in these lands. I don't know if it was formulas, chance, intuition, but there was something else. Something that can't be measured by the rules the conquistadors brought. I walked through Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo with the awe of a child. How did they move those stones? How did they know exactly how to cut them? Who taught them? Maybe no one, maybe they learned it all by listening to the earth. And the more questions I asked, the more the silence answered. A silence that doesn't ignore, it keeps. A silence that waits for us to stop looking with colonized eyes. That's when I knew. The Incas didn't seek to dominate the stone, they allied with it. They treated it like a living being, like a teacher. And that wisdom, somehow, is still there waiting for us. Chapter 2. Cities aligned with the cosmos. I once thought cities were just clusters of buildings. But when I arrived in Cusco, I realized it was a body. A puma, designed not just to function but to resonate. Every temple, every street, had a purpose beyond utility. It was a mirror of the stars. The Incas didn't separate earth and sky. They built with both in mind. I stood at Coricancha and saw how light entered precisely at the solstice. I climbed to Sacsayhuaman and noticed how its walls traced constellations. It wasn't superstition, it was precision. Science woven with spirit. And I realized they didn't build to conquer space, but to align with it. Each Inca city was a dialogue with the cosmos, written in stone. And in that geometry, they encoded balance, not just between man and nature, but between worlds, the visible and the invisible. They didn't live under the stars. They lived among them. Chapter 3. The Energy That Breathes in the Andes. One morning, as the mist still danced over the terraces, I stopped and closed my eyes. I felt it. A pulse. The mountain wasn't still. It breathed. They call it Pachamama, but it's not just a name. It's presence. Energy. Spirit. The Incas didn't worship the earth as a god. They conversed with it as a mother. They listened. They offered. They understood that to take, one must give. And everything had a flow. Aini, they called it. The sacred reciprocity. That's why their cities were not impositions, but extensions of the land. Cusco was not built on the earth, it was drawn by it. Like veins on a hand. I began to walk the Capac Nan, the great Inca road, and I realized it was not only a path for trade, it was a living thread. Each step was a prayer. Each stone an offering. The Incas moved energy, not just people. And I wondered, what if that's what we've forgotten? Not how to build, but how to feel. Chapter 4. The Sacred Code of the Chicana. I used to think the cross was a symbol that came from elsewhere. But one day, in a small village, a woman traced a shape in the dust, a stepped cross. The Chicana. She said, "This is our bridge." It wasn't just geometry, it was philosophy. It represented the three worlds, the one below, the one we live in, and the one above. Okupasha, K. Pasha, Hanan Pasha, and the center, the axis, the heart. The Incas didn't divide the world, they connected it. Everything had a place and a purpose. Animals, stars, rivers. Even time itself was cyclical, not linear. As I learned the meaning of the Chicana, I realized it was not a belief system, it was a way of being. It was the code that governed how they sowed, how they governed, how they dreamed. A map of the cosmos carved in stone and in the soul. And I began to see it everywhere, not just in ruins, but in people's gestures, in silence, in songs. The Chicana is not past, it's a compass. For those ready to return home. Chapter 5. Water, the Wise Architect. I followed the sound of water through the valley, and it led me to Taipan. There, the streams didn't just flow, they danced. Perfect channels guided the water, like if it were music. The Incas didn't control it, they collaborated with it. They understood its language. Water taught them to build. Where it flowed, life followed. Crops, animals, people. And not just survival, harmony. They built aqueducts that still function centuries later.
How?
Not with brute force. With listening. With patience. The sound of water was their blueprint. And each source was sacred. A spring wasn't a resource, it was an oracle. At Taipon, I knelt beside a channel and touched the current.